All right, we're
Yeah,
back.
I'm good.
Okay, everybody.
Hello, how are you?
Greetings.
So we're going to talk about cultures now.
Setting cultures and everything like that.
Cultural traits.
Okay.
Also, just setting-wise vibes of the stuff.
Yep.
So one thing I guess that'll lead into interesting things, I guess, is the Ernest has a bit of an accent.
Yes,
How
I do. Wait, I do?
Is that something inherent to the continent?
Yes, I think it
Okay.
is. That's why it's so obvious that people are from the continent.
Okay.
They have the northern accent
Oh, okay, that's the northern accent.
because the continent is in the north, of course.
Right, yeah.
Damn Northerners with their truck nuts and rebel flags.
Tire fires and all that.
Cool.
Don't insult my heritage.
Is there anything else interesting about the continent? Or, like, we've sometimes said it was an empire, we've sometimes said it was a kingdom,
Yeah.
because you said you were part of, like, the army, so, like, there's some sort of organization there.
It's definitely like one nation with some sort of rulership. I think that the continent is... How much does Nilfgaard want to pick? I don't think I want it to be ruled by a single emperor. But I do like the idea of like a council of like half a dozen people, basically, ruling it.
Ooh.
Well, we did
I
say that
like-
it was something like recently unified, right?
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that's why it's a council. All of those people are representatives of the most powerful of the former nations.
What I want to say...
They aren't powerful enough to be on the council. Yes.
I had a thought, sorry. Since it's a council, maybe the admittance to that council is that you are the holder of one of the artifacts. So, like...
And these aren't just
So-
it's not any magic item. You have to, like...
No. Yeah.
Basically, each... your crown is not necessarily a crown itself, but some sort of... Your item, your badge of authority is a magical artifact.
Right. And so it could be like, we could then call it like council of like the bearers or like the holders or my eloquence is not being good right now, but you could sort of allude to it in the title.
Yeah. It could even be like the Keeper's Council or something like that.
I like that.
Yeah, there we go. Keeper. Yeah. And then how big do you think the council would be? Is it like...
I think there's 6 people. Like, exact.
6?
I think
Okay.
6 is a good number. It's small
I like
enough
that.
so that the power, they have more, like, a ton of power compared to the rest of the continent, but large enough
Right.
so that it's interesting instead of just one ruler or even 3. It's reasonably, it's reasonable.
But that also tells us now that there's roughly 6 crazy artifacts the Empire
in
is
the
in
continents
control of,
that they, yeah.
that the city-state should need to find a way to counteract.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. What else? I think that the Empire, like I mentioned, I was born a slave. I think slavery isn't
Right.
now. Slavery and using slaves in the army is what won the war for the factions and influences that now make up a major part of the Empire. So I think that slavery is a fully sanctioned thing there. It's an
Okay.
everyday thing. It wasn't in all parts, and it may not be in all parts of the island, and maybe in some parts of the island, but in the continent, it is now sanctioned throughout the entire continent.
Okay. So does each keeper then have their own army and soldiers, or is there sort of like a conglomerate type thing? Like,
I
were
think-
you specifically under one of the keepers?
It's been about 5 years, so I think now there is one, but there's still tension in between. Like, basically, all of the separate armies are now officially separate divisions of the same army. So in terms of what that really means in real life, they might as well be separate armies. But they're all technically ruled over by the council themselves. When it comes to discussions, they are a democracy, as in, like, they vote on matters and stuff. But that's like the only example of democracy within the entire society.
Yeah, I like the separate divisions thing because then the council can use their individual divisions as leverage against other council members.
Right.
Yeah, you basically, the council as a whole can give one order, but then if a council member gives secret messages out to their division, the division will follow who they're actually loyal to within the council, more than the greater whole, basically. So when they all work together in unison, they are a force to be reckoned with. But that is still a thing that they're trying to learn to do.
Right. But that is still an oddity.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
What else? So, I joined the military at 12 years old. So I think that child soldier, like, I was a foot soldier at 12 years old. 13 actually, because I led in, so it was a year of training. So I think they also tend to use, like, soldiers with a variety of ages.
Well, I was a naval soldier sailor at the age of like 8. So it might just be a universe setting thing,
like
rather than
with this technology, just people like do more dangerous things at a younger age.
Or maybe it was something of the times, right? Like
you're seen as a man when you're
15 years ago. There was a huge need for soldiers, so anyone that could pretty much sufficiently hold, a sword or a march and
that's true.
Do a drum, they were given, right?
You can go the other way with it too, where like the younger kids, like they're drum and fife corps, but they're still technically army.
Right.
They don't necessarily fight, but they're support personnel.
Yep.
Right. But this also makes sense, though, right? Because this would also be right around the time. Well, I think that Edwin's father would have left, and so he would have been the only one remaining at the property to become the lord, right?
Yep. It
so
was
maybe
how
one of the
long
things.
ago?
So I think because he has scholar, he's a little older than the rest of us.
16 years ago is when I joined the army. Yeah.
And I don't quite remember what Nico's first stuff was.
Nico was a student until he was 16, so, and then he was an archer for 3 years, and that was only 4 years ago for the smuggler. So, yeah, 7 years ago he would have been an archer.
I became a naval sailor 17 years ago.
Yeah, so there is like a big push. Yeah,
but I was already sort of planning on that because I was just sort of on the boat already, and they were just sort of like, well, you're here, so we might as well make use of you type thing.
Yeah, and for me I was a slave, and then I either volunteered or got drafted with a thing on the continent is if you were a slave and you get drafted into the military, if you survive, congratulations, you're no longer a slave, you're free to go. Which is what happened to me. Only I decided to stay in the military, became a sergeant, ended up retiring as a veteran at 21 actually.
So I think that's something that's interesting, right? So like something like 15 to 20 years ago made a huge push for soldiers everywhere. Which seems kind of interesting. Maybe one of the artifacts went off.
Maybe a new one was found, and it was either on one of the islands closest to one, like the continent, of which at the time wasn't united, but maybe the nation that I was in was close to it, and so both the island nations and the continental separate nations at the time were scrambling to sort of get it first.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe the war for unification has been going on for a long time too, and someone pulled out the big guns at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the
I think
artifacts...
that I won, like in terms of my character was fighting on the winning side, and
Right.
But he ended
Whereas
up
I
fighting
was
for 8
saying
years.
I would have been on the losing side, because then I became a pirate and everything.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
maybe our characters are in that scuffle.
We might have been at the same skirmish and not knowing it, but I think let's specifically leave that in it as an unknown for now.
Yeah.
I think as far as Nico goes with his military service, I think that happened like right at a time where the islands were like, holy shit, they're going to unify the continent. We need people. So they
Right.
started, pulling people in.
Yeah.
Right, but maybe since yours was a little later, it was more of like the ending,
yeah,
or like the ending of World War II, right? Like where like you went through all the training and everything, but you never saw actual combat, right? Because like just as you were being deployed, everything sort of
Yeah,
worked
he
itself
would have
out.
been in like 2 years before unification started, and the islands could have been like, well, we can see how this is going. They're going to unify.
Yeah. We'll
Right.
just do a controlled pullback, a controlled retreat, basically.
Cool.
Also, I like the idea of getting back to the organization. My character himself is personally not involved with it, like in that he knows about it, but doesn't really. He just knows that his sister is involved in some supposedly big shot organization. He doesn't know much about it.
Right. So how long ago did the Empire unify?
I think that it was when I retired at 21, which was. So I said about 5 years ago. That was 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
Okay, so yeah, that definitely makes sense because that's right when I would have started being an archer.
Perfect.
Because there's a 1 year lead in there. Yeah.
Let me see where that goes into mine.
Yeah, being an
8
being
years
a
ago.
scholar takes forever. So
Oh, that's like halfway through my pirate time. Okay.
10 years
makes
ago,
sense.
I was just getting
'Cause that's when
started.
they
fought some
that's when
losing
the fighting
battles and
ended.
got the hell out.
Yeah, you got out before the fighting ended, before it turned too bad. Cool. And there was one other thing. Yes, I like the idea of the organization because I imagine, like, if you treat a nation like a person, what a person tends to do when they're scared is and they want to protect themselves, they tend to be defensive, draw in. If you play RTSs, you tend to turtle and fortress up your base. But eventually, if you turtle too much, you're just going to lose, which is why the organization wants to do the opposite and sort of unite all of the islands as one thing, which, of course, no one wants to do because it's risky and hard, but a lot of people would think that they are invincible if they stay where they are, basically.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It's been working for them so far.
and
there's probably a lot of resistance to island unification based on what they're seeing from the continent. Like, look what they did. They unified and then they became this maybe warmongering place.
I think so. It's like after like in the Middle Ages, after a war, the soldiers will like celebrate in horrific ways for everyone who isn't them.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically like what the nation is. It's like changed in a way. After the war, where a bunch of the like soothing platitudes and like inspirational stuff has gone away. Yeah. Bunch of the promises were not so much broken, but forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think
So-
that my character, Ernest, despite having fought for them for 8 years, and lived for 20 years in there, does not care one way or the other against the continent. He's not against them, doesn't hate them, but he doesn't care for them.
So I guess it almost seems like there would then be sort of like upwards of 6 different sort of factions inside the Empire, culturally. But I don't know if we would know that offhand. So I don't know if you wanna worry about all those different sub-factions, or we just focus on one.
I think let's focus on one, because like in Adam's Running Wheel game, the cultural traits aren't necessarily true. They're what people in this area, the islands, assume are
Right.
true. So, what is the
Well, I
stereotype?
could also say like there's like that big point, right? So like maybe that from the continent and the map you drew, So maybe that's like one of the keeper's original areas, and so we're really still only used to seeing the one
Exactly.
area. So I guess this could be both with questions
Actually,
for
that's
Nico
hilarious.
and
The
Edwin,
islanders
but,
would call my accent northern, but the continentals would call it southern because I'm in the
Yeah.
south end of the continent.
right, yeah.
Yeah. How big are each of these areas? Because like we're talking about an empire that spreads out over an entire continent, right?
Yeah, the continent that is on the map is literally just like a corner. Like it's
Right. Well, is that
most of
even
it's
the
off the map.
continents? That is the continents? Okay.
Yeah, but most of it's off the map. Like 90% of it is off the map.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
like
it's not
that's
actually a
that's
very
their
big
Florida.
continent.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest landmass around for sure, by far.
Is this the
But it's
continent
not.
that I'm from? Am I from this continent? I don't think so, right?
It's up to you.
I think I'm from
Some of the larger islands are pretty big. I might remove that biggest one or make it smaller. It seems too big
Okay.
in terms of drawing.
I don't think I am. But I think that the continent is probably really massive. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
actually a continent. Like, one of these factions itself probably outnumbers everybody that's on the islands. Right?
Yeah.
Well, right,
I
because
think
like
so.
that biggest island in the lower right is actually bigger than what we see of the continent right now. Well,
Yeah.
you just told us. Okay.
That's what I was fixing because I think it's too big. But I think that is, basically the biggest island is equal to one of the 6 factions. It's like the size of it.
Okay.
So it's like even combined, you need magic artifacts to survive this. It's not. That's why I think we discussed that the organization wants you to find magical artifacts because they want them in order to withstand the onslaught or basically be important amongst the coming tide.
What do you guys think of the current scale between everything?
I believe that I looked up how fast medieval sailboats travel, which is a lot slower than.
So like right now, like your biggest one is like 180 miles by like.
Oh, do you have a scale?
150 miles. Yeah.
In about a day, a medieval ship would travel about 120 miles, and that is hugely dependent on weather. It could be way more, like 250, or way less, like 20.
200.
So a day's journey in between some of the larger islands on average.
Oh, wow.
I like it. And then I'm not sure about the continent, as I said, maybe farther away than it actually is. I'm not sure.
I feel like...
Or there are some environmental hazards between the
Coral
continent
reef.
and,
Yeah.
maybe that's a particularly stormy area.
Yeah, that's
something.
one thing is you guys haven't really done any like underwater things, or like if there's like a area of like constant, like you don't take a ship there, it'll crash, right? Like
Yeah.
capes or something like that, or
We could bring in the coral reef idea from the dwarves if we want to. Maybe not the dwarves thing, but that coral reefs as an idea makes sense.
I try to make the continent a little bigger, but
I wouldn't make it closer. But yeah.
Oh.
okay.
I think we'll just imagine that we're just seeing the very tip.
Oh yeah, we're totally just seeing the tip.
Right. But I was
Just for a minute.
Do we want a coral reef to be something like that? And then, so if you have to sail, you basically have to go around, which makes the journey take a lot longer than you'd think. Which also would make some sense because if you want to send like messenger hawks or something between the continent and islands, it's kind of quick. But actually going there, less so.
I was just making it a little longer because now it's about 500 miles wide
Yeah.
and still just under 200 miles
Yeah, exactly.
down.
So it's about 240 miles turnaround. If you want to get to the tip, which would be about here, that's that's like a 3-day journey, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I feel
Did you guys
like
want to?
if the area of your adventure is 100 square miles, there's probably going to be a lot more smaller islands that aren't on this map.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like we're
These are
only
the
seeing the
ones.
very largest islands here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we went from.
Did you
See, I
guys-
was looking at it zoomed out, and I didn't realize you put a scale on it. So I was like, "All right, well, this is where we're going to start." But this is actually large enough to be the entire game world.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Cool. I think we're good with that.
Uh,
Do we want
So-
the coral reef as a thing?
sure.
Yeah, we.
I was
definitely
about to
want-
ask if you guys wanted to start placing like where city states actually were, or if there was like some empire cities you remember.
I think let's
You want
just
it to go in
let's
the
just do that in the background, all of us, if we want to start naming things and putting dots in places
Yeah,
and things
sure.
like that.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
we have
Totally.
a
So,
thing
yeah.
to just name
Uh,
things. Cool.
So I guess while you guys are doing that in the background, one thing I was going to try and do still is figure out the cultural traits for at least the empire right now. So I guess I could ask the non-empire people, what at this point, what traits do you assume the empire has?
Yeah, let me flip through real quick here.
Do we want the Empire to be the Mesoamerican faction, or would we like them to be like an Asian faction, or what?
I like the idea of the islands being Mesoamerican because just in general, it's a rarely explored thing in RPGs, and so sticking to sort of what we already are familiar with it, which is it sort of being sort of a tropical island, ruin. Like if we're exploring ruins of them, it would be sort of among that setting.
Mm-hmm.
Would be familiar to us. It's not like
Yeah.
ground we've already treaded on or anything like that.
I do think there would be some cold areas in the island and everything, but which is weird then because how
we have
cold is
mountains,
the
though.
right? How cold is the island or not the island, the empire if it's further north? Or is this a southern hemisphere thing, right? Like
I think
we're
it's
in
like
the
comparing
southern-
New York to Florida, because they aren't actually that far apart.
okay, right,
Yeah.
But New York can get snow and Florida basically can't, almost never.
right.
So it's
Right.
a good deal colder. It's like
Or is it Florida and New York flip, right? Like is the jungle swamp stuff the empire with like the lower southern islands being more like Iceland and Greenland and stuff?
that's up to you guys. I'm good either way.
I was hopefully wanting to get like at least like a couple glaciers and stuff in somewhere, but those could be much further south or north or
Why don't
something.
we rotate it 90 degrees? North and south is east and west. So you could have off to the east be your
Okay.
iceberg land.
Okay.
We're on Uranus now, guys.
I actually don't. Okay.
I wonder if there's a way for me to do that.
For some reason, I
Well,
can't draw
uh,
on roll 20.
The whole
Oh.
map. I mean, you could select everything and then twist it, maybe. But I don't know.
Can I do that? No, I can't because it goes off the screen. So it will be difficult at best.
I don't think I can.
Well, you could increase the size of the map itself.
Yeah, you
That's
would have to because it's currently not equal.
Yeah, increase the canvas size.
They're both.
Well, it says it's equal. That's weird.
Sure,
right now
doesn't look good.
30 by 30, and it totally doesn't seem like that.
That's weird.
Uh,
Yeah, it definitely isn't.
so I'm about to change it up. Hopefully, it doesn't ruin everything. There we
Cool.
go.
Yep.
Yeah, that is definitely not equal.
Very
Hold on.
strange.
Let me grab everything.
I'm going to draw over here.
Hold up. I'm moving stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that? Oh, that's cool. That's actually in Cayman, I think. Anyways, let us continue.
Yeah. So, what kind of ideas would city-states and the islands have? Would they be called the Islanders? Like,
By the Continentals, it would be.
yeah,
Just
by
like
the
Continentals are called.
Yeah.
So, you guys have free reign over the islands. I will work on my continent.
Yeah. But like, what kind of traits are they mischievous? Are they like?
Oh, what do Continentals see them as?
Or no, what do people see the Continentals as?
Okay.
The other way. Like, and this doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be anything in the book. Like, it's just a character trait. Like,
I think imperious probably works. It's assuming power or authority without justification, arrogant and domineering.
okay, imperialistic.
That's
This might be weird, but like from the Empire, I'm actually getting like a really Roman vibe, right? Like,
That's a lot of what Nilfgaard was inspired by.
okay,
Actually,
but also like sort
is-
of like the idea of like anywhere they are, they could say like I am a continental, and boom, they're safe, right? Like the whole like I am a Roman.
Yep.
Cool, I like that.
Yeah, I feel like they're very urban.
Yeah, I think there might be or there used to be like a great divide between the jungle area and the urban, or like the man-inhabited area.
Mhm.
And now, with the war going on, a lot of that was cleared out, and then now a lot of people are sort of expanding. It's like, hey, these aren't war zones anymore, and there's a lot of already cleared land that is ripe for farming on. So,
Okay.
I think that it was, and it now is less divided between wilderness and civilization.
Okay. And you were
Hold on.
I'm sorry, like what kind of
so.
like what? I'll go for it, Zen.
I was just saying, what kind of? I'm more picturing like, because these guys are Continentals, and because like this is how the Islanders see it. I'm picturing like someone on the island seeing a tourist, and for some reason I just can't get the loud, boisterous, like American
Oh, totally.
piece
Yeah.
of shit tourist.
Where's
You
the
know?
nearest McDonald's?
Right.
What's with all the
that kind
fish?
of guy.
Why is it so
They-
hot all the
they-
time?
They go
Yeah.
someplace for vacation and expect it to be exactly like home. That kind of thing.
That's
So it,
precisely why they went on vacation.
Boisterous? Would that work?
Yeah,
Or-
maybe vocal, because they're always just voicing
Demanding?
how
Or
So, Primark, I just forgot, you said, like, maybe not the Mesoamerican stuff for Continental, but you were thinking, like, a different vibe, or at least for the southern continent part.
Yeah.
Right?
I like sort of the a bit of the Roman vibe and a bit of what's the right word? A bit of classic European vibe when it comes to the continent specifically.
Okay.
What's the right way to put this? It would be a lot like 1700s Britain in a way, like powerful in terms of powerful, but not necessarily forward thinking,
Okay.
and also very traditional minded. By which I mean they tend, like a lot of people tend to, this is how it has been done. This is how it should be done, which is very interesting, actually,
Yeah.
considering the sort of chaotic upheaval that happened recently, and so
That'd be a
a lot
good.
of that
That'd be
thing's
a
been challenged.
that'd be a good third trait, and that would go kind of like with what Zen was talking about.
And that's
with the
actually an
boisterous,
excellent
where, like,
cultural trait, because a lot of people who would be extremely outspoken about that sort of thing, we shouldn't be doing it that way, would probably leave the continent to go to the islands because they don't like the way the continent is doing things.
right. They all moved to Canada, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what would be the one word or two word phrase that would exemplify that? Like,
maybe not traditionalist, but actually closed-minded might be good because they don't want change specifically.
okay.
So closed-minded would be.
So we got
accurate
3
for that.
traits for the continent, so to speak,
Yes.
or at least the southern continent.
I wasn't writing them
It's the
down. What are they?
continent, yes. I have them. They're imperious,
Okay.
boisterous,
Okay.
and closed-minded.
Cool.
So I think we are, and it has, everything has sort of like a Roman classical European vibe to it.
Yeah. Very different from the islands.
Right. So I think we are good with that. Let me switch back over to the map so I can see what you guys have been doing. Okay. Have you guys figured out anything about maybe like where you would want to have your sort of home city-state, Nico, or?
Yeah, I think this one right here is what I'm going to claim if no one has a problem with it.
Okay, I'll go for it.
And I'm picturing sort of. Well, you know what? Actually, I want it to be closer to the mainland.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with the top one here, because I'm
Okay.
sort of picturing a
Right.
Scottish war for independence kind of William Wallace vibe going on there. Like we want our freedom, stay the fuck off our land, that kind of
Okay.
thing.
Right. Keep in mind though, right? Like with the reef and everything there.
Yeah.
Maybe like maybe they have like longboats, right? And the longboats can get over the reefs, but like the bigger naval ships can't.
Yeah.
Would that be something, or is that taking too much? Is that too weird for people who know about ships and coral stuff?
Yeah, as long as it's got a low draft, reef doesn't really affect you. It just depends on what kind of reef this is, whether it's like actually sticking like 2 inches up, beneath the surface or not.
The problem
Well, I
with the
imagine it
reef
varies at
is
points, right?
that the tides. You don't know what the tides are. You're going to get on the reef and die. If you do know what the
Right.
tides are, you can sail right over them just fine.
Well, I think they're out far enough, actually, that tides won't really affect it too much.
Tides are everywhere. I mean, if you look at the atolls, they're
Right. Well,
basically
yeah, it's
just-
30 miles offshore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's deep water right there. It should
Is
be
it though?
anyway.
I mean, I imagine this whole thing is in the same continental plate. Like if you think
That's kind
about
of
it,
up to you guys. Though with all the volcanoes we're doing, this is sort of has that sort of ring of fire aspect to it. So
yeah.
we could have some really deep water.
that's true.
Here.
But we also have the islands. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we said, these are just the major islands. There could be, all kinds of islands up through this area.
I don't feel like this is the deep, deep, deep water. It might be.
Okay. So
Especially if
does
we have
this-
elves living in there.
So is that top island then like a city-state area? Is it an island nation?
I think it's an island nation.
Okay.
That probably has maybe 3 cities on it, with the capital being towards the middle.
Oh, okay. So it's actually not the capital isn't going to be a seafaring capital.
No, I was thinking actually of, like maybe a plateau in the middle where the capital kind of sits up, like on a mountain.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Actually, how big is this island? Yeah, it's like 50 miles across. So yeah, being in the capital, you'd be able to see all of the surrounding, the coastline and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like them to be as Scottish as possible. I'm thinking.
Well, with a name like Nico Zolas, it's totally Scottish.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that it's kind of a melting pot, really, since it's right off of the
Okay. Yeah.
right off the coast there. But like the indigenous culture is very Scottish.
So everything's sort of clan family driven.
Mm-hmm.
So then in the capital is like one clan in charge, or is there more of like a ruling clan?
Yeah,
chief?
I think the capital is. I think the capital is more metropolitan, and the other two cities are more clan driven.
Okay.
And the capital is more, ruled by one person, but voted on by the two cities. So there's sort of a representation for both their interests.
Okay. So is Nico part of one of the clans?
I think his mother was.
Okay.
And his father was just a trader.
Okay. Cool. So with your idea of it being sort of Scottish and we want our freedom, like what kind of traits are we looking at here for this island? Do you have a name for the island?
Not as of yet. Let me think about that for a second. But trait wise, I'm thinking. Oh, I saw one in here earlier that was interesting. No, I can't remember the damn name of it. Where'd the traits go? There they are.
It doesn't have to be a specific trait.
Yeah, I had just saw it. I saw it in here earlier, and I was like, "Well, that makes sense," but no, I can't remember what the hell it was. But yeah, I'm figuring maybe brash, like they're sort of quick to anger when you challenge them.
Okay. I imagine Ernest has probably had a few encounters with these islanders.
Oh yeah.
Does the Empire have any sort of thoughts on this island?
Can you sum up what you were guys talking about? So
it's kind of like a Scottish clan-driven area with this pseudo-metropolitan trade area in the middle of the island, and that they are pretty aggressive against the Empire, saying "stay away, leave us alone," and everything.
Okay.
So they're probably not very friendly to all the wandering continentals who are coming over trying to leave the Empire.
I think that for them, they tend to think of them as brutish, I think is the right word. Someone that is both kind of looked down upon, but also scary.
Scary, but unrefined.
Exactly. So I think brutish is what that works with.
A bit savage.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what they see them as.
Yeah, so you're basically the English as far as...
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Do you have any thoughts, Golden? Or...
I'm just drawing.
I think these guys kind of have a sense of community as well, like within themselves.
So, like, clan-driven, family-driven?
Yeah,
or...
well, basically, it's if you're from here, you're a friend regardless of if I just met you or I've known you for 20 years. You know, you are one of us, and
that's a good one.
How does that affect people who leave and come back?
I think they're welcoming to anyone that claims ancestry from here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm tentatively calling that one in quotes "one of us." I like that one, but like, I don't know if we want like a further description saying no, like one of the clan or like, you know, or whatever that island is, right? So it's almost kind of like the fishers from the
yeah, exactly.
The Apocalypse Roll20.
Well, that's
show.
Yeah.
When people leave, is it a big deal? Like maybe it's not looked down upon, but is it like a ceremony or a celebration? Is it like a going away party equivalent?
I think when they leave, not so much, but when they come back. Like if you return to us, it is a celebrated thing that you have not forsaken your culture. You're coming back. You're you know, and that's sort of like proof that you're indeed one of us. Is that
Cool. The mainland,
you didn't
right?
desert the clans. No, this first island here.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Cool. So that's 3 traits done for the Scottish island.
Isle of Coats.
Were you keeping track, Zan, or did you want me to go back over them? Or we could go back over them in general. So
yeah, go back over them real quick.
So it's this top island where I'm assuming you're from there, Nico.
Yes.
It's an island nation with about 3 cities, with the capital being in the middle of it on this weird plateau, or maybe like a clipped-off mountain or something.
Yep.
That has a very Scottish clansman vibe, which is sort of governed by clans, but not really in the capital. They don't care as much in the capital. And it has most of the people in the island are viewed as brash, brutish, and one of us. Does that sound cool?
Yeah.
Yep. I would refine the capital a bit to be more of. I think it's more of the mediator between the 2 cities. Like there's 2 chief clans that run each of the cities, and they establish this capital to kind of mediate between the 2.
Right.
Is there a lot of trade between them and the continent, because they are the closest island?
Yeah, I think there was, but after all of the unification happened, they started saying, you know what,
like
it might not be the best idea to let them in here because they're just going to take us over next. We're tactically their next target if they decide to expand.
Cool.
So,
okay.
Cool.
Makes sense. Is the conspiracy maybe headquartered in Scotland?
I don't know if do they have a headquarters?
I imagine
Let's discuss that after, because this is a big thing that we'll want to discuss after.
I would imagine that
they're close.
Yeah, I would imagine that they're heavily represented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But considering that's the first place that if the Empire did invade, that they would strike, then I don't know if they would leave themselves open like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they would definitely want to bring them into the fold very early. Yeah. I think, like, if we are involved, that means my character is at least somewhat involved, which means they themselves aren't, like, prone to... They aren't against bringing... Oops, I think I moved all of the islands slightly.
Okay.
They aren't against having Continentals involved to themselves just because they're from there. They just don't want them... There we go, that's where they were. No. Yes. They just don't want, like... They aren't blindly saying, you're from the continent, therefore you can never do it. They can never be in with us. They're obviously not going to they're obviously going to try to kill you or assassinate you or stop you from going back and reporting intel
Yeah.
about them. But other than that, they're not going to be like blind about loyalties, because
Of course.
there have been a lot of people who have left the continent saying that they don't like what they do, and so they want to take advantage of that.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So
So-
let's talk about what's up with them later. In fact, we might not even know. That might be up to the GM, whoever they are at the time, to introduce to us over time. You come across another organization contact or someone who says the code words to you to reveal that they're...
What's the yellow?
Cities.
Oh, stars.
I was using black to note that.
I
Okay.
didn't see any yet. Sorry.
I had one at
you
the
just
top.
made little tiny
ones.
dots. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
You can
somewhat
use
now.
black dots instead of okay.
No, I'm fine with either. I
I
was
just
not
way
sure what.
zoomed out, so I literally could not see the black dots.
Okay. Anyways, who is up next? I went. Golden went. Not Golden.
No, I haven't do anything yet.
Zen went.
Yeah. It sounds like we need to figure out the nobility of Lord Wilson
Yeah.
and how all that works.
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from over here on the west side, the Halfwind Mountains. It's actually Halfwind. Think of it like the Sidewinder Mountains.
What are they called? Halfwine?
Halfwind.
Oh, I can't remove your star because you drew it. Okay.
Oh. You want me to move
Okay.
my stars?
Do not know how to spell that. But okay. So
Well,
you're
I'll
near
move
there.
the
I think.
word. There we go.
Well, I'm on a different page.
Oh, okay. It's Haeef Wind. Oh,
And
wait.
D?
It should be Wend, shouldn't it? Let me check my character sheet.
Halfwind or Halfwind. Okay.
Okay. So is there like a city around those mountains that you're from?
Yeah, I'm from the city on the east side, at the base of the mountains. Think of it like
Okay.
Seattle, right? It's in the crook of the mountains between the
Yeah.
mountains and the sea.
Do you have
Um,
is there a name for the city?
No, I didn't come up with city names yet. But
Okay.
there are like in the provinces or in the valleys between the mountains, and the place that I run is called the Path Askew.
A path askew?
The Path Askew,
The path askew. Okay, cool.
and it's like it's located on a cliff that overlooks a valley below, like maybe 1,000 feet down, where all the farms are.
Okay.
It's a small city, but it's mine.
Okay.
And there might be like 4 or 5 of those that my siblings and my closer family relations, they run those cities.
Okay.
And there's several other cities on the continent.
On the island? So,
Yeah,
is it,
on the island.
so with the nobility and everything, it's more of an island nation as well?
No, they're competing city-states.
Oh, okay.
But like the main city has like outlying cities because there's so much space. Like this is
So it is a kingdom?
no, they're competing. Okay, it's a kingdom, yes, but the yellow stars aren't the cities of the kingdom.
The yellow stars are cities in general.
Each star is the capital of a kingdom.
Okay, each star is a capital, not a city?
Yeah. Well, it's a capital city.
Cool.
So there's competing territories.
Yeah. and like the southwest part is like very rocky and hilly, so people don't live there. And the southeast part is like this lush verdant farmland that's so profitable that none of the other city-states will let anyone claim them. So it's like the breadbasket over there.
Okay.
You can feed all the other islands if there's good trade. And I think it's hotter because if we're going to do the right side of the map is colder and the left side of the map is hotter, it's probably like really hot there. It's probably jungle wherever they haven't cleared for farmland. They probably destroyed a rainforest or two. Culturally, I think they're Eastern European. I usually like Russian architecture a lot in the Tsar era. That's okay.
I just realized that we were both naming our things, and I noticed that Cadenfell is the name of that island, and without even thinking, like, I don't think I even read that, or it was subconscious, but I don't think I read that at all. I named one of my cities on the continent Cadenhold, so I think that's like there's a history there.
Cool.
Of this guy called Caden, who used to live on the continent and died on that island.
Or it could be like where I live. I live in McHenry County, but the county seat is in Woodstock. And the reason it is the county seat is because 100 years ago, they got together a mob. They went to City Hall and they stole all the documents and legal records. And then they said they were the seat of the county. And it's been that way ever since.
Okay.
Alternate
So,
history possibility.
Let me see here. What kind of, do other islands still treat this island as, like, one entity, or how does that all work?
I don't think so. I think they mostly don't treat with the city-states, the nations. They're probably seen as too much infighting with each other, and they don't want to get stuck in a little bit of a war. They'll mostly just try and trade for food in the southeast. But if there's like smuggling or arms dealers, then they would go to the cities.
So, I guess you said, like, one of the trait things that makes sense to me is that, like, so people from there are seen as easy to, like, they're always in conflict or something. So, like,
yeah, easy to
people are like, let's not do anything with them because they're just going to get in a fight with us.
They're very hot-blooded.
I completely am losing track of what that word is, though.
Hot-blooded?
Short temper?
Hot temper? Or easily angered? Or
rebellious?
No, there is a word, and I'm forgetting it too.
Quarrelsome? So we just look at the trait lists? Yeah.
Oh, this might not be on the trait list, man.
Okay. Oh, I mean, there's so many words on the trait list. If you just look at the words, you might see something you like. But, yeah, querulous is really good because there's so many different definitions of that word. And, like, one city might be more of one kind of quarrel. Like, they might be more militaristically querulous. And another city might be like a city of philosophy, and they might try to argue you to death. And another city might be like so capitalist that they'll try and bargain you down to having no money. Like, just a bad deal. There's not even a point trying to trade with them.
So the querulous from the book is actually not to quarrel. It's an adjective meaning complaining in a petulant or whining manner.
No, it's not. I mean, they could be. Maybe that's what everybody else thinks they are. That's the outsider's view.
Right.
They're always complaining about the war or how the foreigners don't respect them or whatever. How trade
There's
is
a few
bad.
few other like snappish, cantankerous, bad-tempered,
Maybe
grumpy, petulant.
too childish. You can't say an entire civilization is petulant.
Well, maybe the others view like this whole weird rivalry thing as just,
I mean, I guess.
Really-
I mean, and basically, you're making racial stereotypes here. You're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
get an outside lens on
Yeah,
what
but
this is
people
what
think.
people
Would
think
you
happens,
really
not
think of an
specifically your
entire
character.
culture as childish? Really? I guess I'm not
Well, the
that kind of
continent would.
person. Okay, let's go with that then.
But
That's just not the way I think. That's
well,
fine.
like we're still just trying to figure out what word
yeah.
can just be the whole.
Sure.
They're apt to make conflicts happen,
Oh yeah, definitely.
but they're not rabble rousers.
No.
So like do they get offended easily? Like, things like this, or
I don't think they get offended easily. I think they just don't know how to take a hint that you're not interested. They're
That
very
seems-
insistent, and overbearing.
right? Well, one of them sounds like stubborn, but that sounds like a different one than the conflict thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Primer? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I can't hear
There
you.
we go. Sorry, I was thinking aloud. I know of the word. I know that there is a word, and I think it starts with an A. Irksome? No, it's something that starts with a U, actually. But let me go to the thesaurus.com thing.
Okay, let's say
It's like irksome, but it starts with a U, I believe. Vexing. Aggravating? But you sort of, it's more than that, isn't it? It's like you want to, yeah. It's unguous? What does unguous mean? Something like that. Unctuous.
No, unctuous.
No, that's
Yeah.
not unctuous. Not at all. Okay.
Well, that's a caustic personality, basically. So
Caustic.
That's good.
That could work.
Indignant.
yeah, the die trait unctuous does work. It's the personality of this character is so caustic that he is distasteful and difficult to be around.
Sounds perfect.
Right, but that's a die trait, so maybe
Yeah.
caustic is the better form of that.
Yep.
Yep.
Volatile. Impetuous, maybe.
Oh, impetuous is a good word.
Acting without thinking, and so that's perfect for this if you get someone riled up.
That's perfect.
Explosive. Okay. Impetuous.
Yeah, definitely impetuous.
That sounds
Yeah, it's right along that line of aggravating, childish, a little bit
yeah.
of a pain in the ass. Yeah.
Yeah. Impetuous. It's like acting or done quickly and without thought or care.
Yep.
Yep.
So, okay.
Definitely
Impetuous.
that's how they would be saying.
So that's the second one. 3. Any other thoughts or ideas? Like, they actually do have sort of like the nobility structure here rather than like a clan structure or a city structure. Is there something about that maybe? Or
I think they're probably superstitious.
Okay.
Like I was talking before about how I would like the bloodlines to take apart, and maybe they just believe that people who have like from certain bloodlines are better.
Well, that might be a little different from superstitious.
That's a very specific thing.
But maybe
than
they think
general
it's like
superstition.
it's better in a magical way, like a caste system.
Caste?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, like, they have this sort of superstitious thing where you have to stay where you are or else. Is that right?
So, does that
I don't
tie
think
into
so.
the nobles at all? So that, like, is pure-blooded something that needs to happen there?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's a very rigid caste system. I think because my character is so, I see him as like so independent and sure
Yeah.
that he can accomplish what he puts himself to, and I want
What
that.
about,
I don't see how you could have that attitude legitimately in a
it could be
really
two different
restricted
traits.
caste system.
Superstitious and traditionalist could be the two traits that sort of combine together.
Well, I was also thinking we could tie it into that whole, like, ascended people type thing.
Yeah.
And you could make it sort of a...
Like everybody there
oh,
believes
God, I just had the word.
Right. But also, like, so now we have this idea of this caste system, and everything is going together, and everything is based on blood. And
So, like, they're
you have a
ancestral.
pregnant dwarf.
Yep.
Like, how, yeah.
She'd
So-
it'd be a bastard child, that's for sure. Even if it was human, I'm not married to her. So
Right.
it'd be a mess. But Burning Wheel is the game about suffering, right?
Yes.
Right.
So they put a high emphasis on bloodlines, and does that therefore mean that they revere a lineage? Like you have to have a pedigree?
Like, I think there's definitely that. I think that it's more about having a good pedigree than it being the same pedigree. Like,
But then now you were saying, though, like, that the caste system is not, like, very strict. So, like, there's ideas of upward mobility or lower mobility. So how would, if everything's bloodline oriented, be merged
that work?
together? Yeah, like, because I assume, like, the higher levels wouldn't want to marry lower unless they were given something, right? So,
well,
how
let's
does the mobility work if it's a loose system?
let's say it's about purity. So the nobles interbreed a lot because that keeps the purity high. And the
Right.
commoners might have powerful bloodlines, but they're not pure. So every so often, like if you're a low caste person, you might not have much upward mobility yourself, but if you marry the right person, then you could say that, well, this person is the descendant of so and so and so and so, so their blood will dominate. So they're
My
actually,
bloodline, my children.
they're actually more deserving than we are. So
I think we might be getting into like a substrata of what the cultural traits are for like.
Yeah.
If there should be like noble cultural traits and commoner.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think that assuming that you're not at your island, do you think that many people would see the difference? Especially since you aren't doing what a regular noble does?
Right.
What do you
Yeah,
mean?
we were kind of talking about just at the island in general.
That they would
So-
see the difference. Like they would definitely know what island that was from by the way I acted.
Yeah, but I mean,
Right,
would
but
they
that's what
care
we're
that
trying
you're
to
an
define
island
is
noble
how-
versus an island peasant? Or would they
Right.
assume that all of those islanders are the same?
We're also trying to define like what you just said, like how you acted, like how what is it that they would identify as? Oh, you're from that
Yeah,
southern
you're like,
Russian
oh,
island,
that person does this. They're probably from blank, or they're
Right.
just like a blank.
and so we have like stubborn and impetuous. Like, is there some sort of like we haven't really
maybe a
done
look.
any like physical,
Yeah.
look. We
Oh,
haven't
you
really
want
done anything
you
like
want
that for
physical
anyone.
looks? I think
It
superstitious.
could be.
If you want,
Will
it
work.
doesn't need to be.
Superstitious could work.
Like he's
Well, like,
definitely going to be
it would work.
superstitious.
It would work, but like then you started talking about like the
But what are
bloodline
they-
stuff,
well, that's what-
and that was something
Yeah.
different.
Well, superstitious could just be a general thing. It could depend
Yeah.
on the person,
Yeah.
which is fine by me. So
Yeah,
if
because-
if they do think a big deal about the bloodlines, then that could just be one of the many outlets for the superstition.
Right, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, that could be how other people see that particular view, is that they're just being superstitious. What the hell does
Yeah.
bloodline matter? You know?
Okay.
True. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So superstitious.
So I think we have
Apparently,
traits
this.
for those three.
If you want like appearance, like I already said, like Eastern European, so maybe they look like kind of Slavic.
Oh, and
So
I
we
was
have,
thinking
uh,
about. Go ahead and finish them up. I've got a little bit more to add on.
Oh
Kate
yeah, it's
and
time
Phil
to take
here,
a break, isn't it?
just for flavor.
Yes, it is. What cultural traits is there left to do? I think Sith is your character after that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm really not sure how to go about that. We could probably do that after the break, though.
Like, it's up to you, because your character won't be joining us immediately. If we want to just direct after the break to only bits, we could wait if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Cool.
I'd like to at least hear what you have to say. Like even if you don't come to a conclusion, just like spitball.
What your culture's like?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Just say
Let's go
what
for
say what you're like, and then say
Whoa.
say what you're like, and then say if your culture is like that or not. Can you do that?
Well, my issue goes into this weird thing because I'm more of like the sea culture.
Right.
Yeah, he's too transient to have a definitive culture.
Right.
Okay.
Unless like
Have you-
seafaring
so you're like
people do
totally
have their own culture.
adopted the sea culture.
I don't know
Yeah,
if they
you're
would
saying.
have their own sea culture then.
Well, I mean,
Honestly.
there's an awful lot of water here, you know.
So
It-
you
it
you
could
want
be
to
that-
define the sea culture. That's what you're saying.
Because you're not just a transient, you're a pirate.
Right. Well, I
Pirate
equate this to
mercenary.
like in Stars Without Numbers, right? Like this is the spacer culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
it definitely
And
is.
does that exist? Okay. So we could talk about that
Sure.
because I am definitely more comfortable on the sea and everything than in any city. I
Sounds
did
good.
think for a while I lived in a city for a while, but that was just to like find people to hire me to do things on the sea.
Yeah. It was just sort of an in-between thing.
Yeah.
All right. We'll
But
think
I haven't
about
decided
that.
which city.
And we'll be back in 5 minutes. So I'll see you, folks.